Are you ready to ignite your information security career? Well, then buckle up, put on your tinfoil hat, and get ready for Hackers on Fire with your host, Glenn Roberts.
Hello, everyone. This is Glenn Roberts. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today. It's John Malessa. Introducing him to Hackers on Fire. Hi, John.
Hi.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you've got a lot of experience in this industry. Information security manager for Classic Graphics, also own Consultech. You're quite the leader of the OWASP chapter here in Charlotte. It's been good to see your name out around town. And you're also a certified information system security professional, also working on your OSCP certification. Soon to get that one, I understand.
That is correct.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I've given everyone a brief overview. Can you dive in a little bit? Tell us a little bit about you personally and what it is you do?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm John Malessa. A lot of my friends, especially the people that I work with, they call me Mojo. I kind of prefer that.
Mojo.
You can call me Mojo if you like.
I love it.
I've been working at Classic Graphics for 7 years now. Started out kind of a hybrid role between IT and development. It was, I guess, what you would call DevOps before DevOps became DevOps. And I moved into systems administration and then heavily Linux systems administration. Somewhere around 2011, 2012, to be honest, I can't even remember exactly what year. That's kind of sad. But we became ISO 27001 certified. My boss had known that I had been interested in information security for a very long time and was studying and practicing things on my own outside of work. And there was an opportunity for me to take that role, and he offered it to me, and I accepted, and I've been doing that ever since. So I think I usually mark it around 2012, but it was in the works about 2-3 years before we became certified. There's a great deal of work that goes into that. The Charlotte OWASP thing is a good thing. It's a good group of people. The hardest part is finding speakers. So if anybody listening is interested in speaking, please get in touch with me, rjmolesa@owasp.org. Would love to hear from you. Otherwise, we just try to have a good time. I usually try to provide pizza and drinks for everyone. We have about a 30-minute meet and greet before any presentation starts, and it's just a good time for people to get to know one another, talk about things. Usually most of our presenters they seem to prefer heavy interaction, which is nice because most of the people that come out regularly like to debate things. So they'll challenge the presenters, and the presenters seem to enjoy that. Most of them do. Some of the ones that maybe don't enjoy it as much as others would be salespeople who maybe don't understand what they're presenting on a deep technical level.
Open season on the sales guys.
It's, I feel sorry for them whenever it starts to happen, but I normally talk about that with them before they come and present. I say, look, I've got a group of very intelligent people. They like to debate things, and they may very well tear apart what you say, and you got to be okay with that. And most of them are. But anyway, if you're in the Charlotte area, we do submit CPEs for anyone who has a certificate that requires CPEs. I think you can get about 2 CPEs per meeting, and all we need is your certificate number. So if you're in attendance and we have your name and certificate number, we can submit that to the accompanying body for you. For most people, that would be the ISC squared.
John, I really love what you said about your boss knowing ahead of time because you've shared with them what you were wanting to do with your career. And so when the opportunity came up, you were the first person that he thought of to ask if you wanted to step forward on that compliance with 27001. I just love that, and I have seen that happen in my life and then other people's careers as well, making sure that people know what it is you want to do and where you're going. Can you give us a motivational quote? Do you have anything like a motivational quote that would be inspiring to the listeners?
It's not by anybody famous, but it's people dearly important to me in my life. My mom and dad both, from a very young age, instilled in me whatever I set my mind to, I could achieve. And so I kind of grew up believing that there was really nothing I couldn't do. It was just a matter of making the decision and committing to it, and then putting some kind of resources into it. And it served me well. And it's been true. I've heard my mom reflect all these years later, she'll reflect at different points in my life, and she'll say, "Honey, you just." And it's funny when she says this because I don't know if she remembers telling me as a kid that whatever I put my mind to, I can do. But she says, "You've always been the kind of person that whenever you decide to do something, you go after it." And it's I mean it's true. So it's
That's awesome, John. Can you take us to an example where specifically on a particular day there was something that you went after and
probably college. I was not in high school. I was not like a rising star or anything. I was kind of a slacker. And afterwards, I remember my dad presented me with a choice of moving out and getting a job or going back to school. I thought, well, okay, that's an easy decision. I'll go back to school. I went to a community college, a local community college. And I did that for 2 years. There's some other little details in that story that I'm leaving out, but I did it for more or less 2 years. And during that time, I decided I wanted to be an architect. So, um, the goal in mind was to be an architect, and I kind of worked backwards and figured out what classes I needed to have, and so on and so forth. Long story short, I ended up not becoming an architect. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration with a minor in management information systems, which is that I found that I had a really a talent for fixing and working on and working with computers. It was kind of an accidental discovery, but the putting my mind to something was finishing college. I tried it. One of the details I left out is I tried one time before. I had gone to community college. I essentially flunked out, joined the Navy. I got rejected from there after 2 weeks in the boot camp for a ruptured eardrum. So a medical discharge, come back home, work construction for a year. That's when I decided I wanted to become an architect. When I set out on that path to go back to school the second time, I really didn't know if I was going to succeed, but I wanted to. I wanted to do the best that I could. I made straight A's all the way through community college. When I transferred in, I got into both NC State University and UNC Charlotte. They were the two public universities that had design schools that offered architecture. I got into both universities, but neither design school. And one of the details that I neglected over the years when I was working towards this goal was my portfolio. I didn't really work on anything artistic related. So, to be honest, though, I didn't really realize that I had to, and that's, I guess, a fault of my own. I didn't do as much research as I needed to do. But I did get into college, I did complete, and I did get a degree, and that was a huge milestone because prior to that, I didn't really the details of my life didn't didn't look like I was going to become a college graduate.
I really appreciate you sharing that because, John, I really think that everyone has this picture of how their career is supposed to progress in some perfect fashion with the stars aligned. But for most of us, including myself, if not everyone, it's kind of an ugly process in a way, the way
It's
we kind
very
of get steered. And it's so helpful to have that motivational influence in the back of your mind, like from your parents that you can do it and you made it happen. So
Yeah,
that's
and it
awesome.
wasn't easy. I had to take algebra 3 times. I had to take chemistry twice. But the point is just persistence and just never giving up, setting your mind on a goal and continually trying to work towards that goal.
Yeah.
That for me has really led to where I am today. So
And that's why you're called Mojo. You've got the mojo.
uh, there's a funny story behind Mojo. Do you remember the movie Talladega Nights?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So it's kind of redneck hillbilly kind of stuff, right?
What are you trying to insinuate here?
Okay, so at the time I was living in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, which is up in the mountains, and there was some of the guys in development were giving me a hard time one day. We were talking about nicknames, and I said something about how none of us really had any nicknames for each other. So for some reason, Talladega Nights was on at that time, and I think the main character's name was like Ricky Bobby or something like that.
Yeah, shake
So
and bake.
there you go. So they called me Bobby because I don't really know why. I guess because they were comparing me to the main character in the movie, and then they take the last, so it's the first syllable of your last name up to the first consonant. So Mo from Melissa, M-O, and then John, J-O, and then you swap them. You swap the syllables, and that's called your Bobby name. So we invented this way to come up with nicknames for people at work. One guy ended up being Bobby Stabber. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's how Mojo came to be.
Well, John, can you tell us a little bit about, your history, some struggle that you had. If you look back at your information security career as you were just getting started in security or wanting to get started and you had some kind of a struggle that you had to overcome, and
I,
take
I
us back there.
I know very well what my personal struggle was, and if there's one thing that I want newcomers that are listening to this to take away is mine was intimidation. I was intimidated of I guess the knowledge or like some of the finer details of information security. You got the theoretical stuff, you got the policies, you got the legal issues, you got the government issues that all play a part on that. But the other aspect of it, and I think what a lot of people are interested in, are the technical skills. And for some reason, I had this mental block that I couldn't do it. So for 10 years, I spent thinking I wanted to learn these skills, like I wanted to practice buffer overflows. And I wanted to practice it, but in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, "Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I can't figure it out. I probably can't do it." So what I wound up doing was just reading about it more often than anything. I never took the time to set up a vulnerable machine and practice on, or I never really tried to hone those skills as badly as I wanted them. I never tried to hone them, and I guess that kind of goes back to setting your mind to something. It took me 10 years to finally make up my mind that I want these skills, and I want to put in the hours and the resources that are necessary to gain these skills. But when I look back on that, I think, wow, I wasted 10 years. Had I got started 10 years ago, how much further along would I have been in my career now had I done this 10 years ago when I was really truly interested in it? And, there's no way, of course, to know that. But the thing that I want people to understand is don't waste your time. Youth is something that really works to your advantage when you become married and you have a job and a career and you have people expecting things from you and you have responsibilities. It becomes increasingly difficult to add new skills to your tool belt. And when you're young, man, you got nothing but time. And when it's gone, it's gone.
What was the turning point that really got you over that hump and helped you penetrate through that intimidation that was holding you down?
Yeah, I think it was taking little steps. The first thing was mental. It was all mental. I just had to decide I am good enough. I am smart enough. I can learn these skills. It's not too late. I'm 37 years old and I'm thinking, wow, it might be too late to learn some of this stuff. But on the other hand, I kind of there's this idea that um, I can't really represent what I want to represent without gaining this knowledge. So I realized I'm either going to have to forget about the technical skills and just kind of let those wither away and die, which I didn't want to do. I was really, really good at technical things whenever I was doing systems administration and the more technical roles. My role now is more it's more managerial. There's a lot of policies, a lot of conversations with internal people within the company about what we can and can't do, why we can and can't do those things, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And so I don't really get to use a lot of those technical skills that I spent so many years gaining. And to finally answer your question, it was this idea of looking down the remainder of my life and thinking, if I don't actually try to put forth some effort to gain these skills, I'm going to regret this because I've already wasted 10 years. I wanted to learn these skills. I was interested in them. I've kind of dabbled here and there, a little bit of Wi-Fi attacks, a couple of those things, but I never really got into like the heavy technical side of it. So the turning point was, just this feeling of regret. Like at some point, looking back and thinking, why didn't I at least try? So, I mean, it is what it is, and so
Right. And John, not only did you try, but you've been extremely successful. You're a leader in the information security field, and at work. You've got the world's premier certification for security behind your belt. You're working on completing a second one. I can't wait to see where you are 5 years from now. I can't even imagine where that is.
that's a vote of confidence.
Absolutely. And so you had this turning point and you turned the corner on that. You've been extremely successful since. With all the successes behind you, what was your proudest successful moment?
You know, this is gonna sound corny and kind of like a cop out, but I think my proudest successful moment is yet to come. When I finally received the OSCP certification, that's going to be a pretty big milestone for me. CISSP was a pretty big milestone, but I'll be perfectly honest. I really didn't have a lot of desire to have that certification. My boss had come to me and said, "Hey, look, we're getting a lot of people, customers that are asking, do we have a CISSP on staff?
Hmm.
Would you consider becoming, I need you to be a CISSP." So I started we talked about it for a couple years beforehand, but it was getting kind of at this critical point in time where it was important to have somebody on staff. So I looked at it and I said, okay, um, I think I went with the Sean Harris book and her videos and sat through, and that is a hard book to read. It is a hard book to read.
Yes,
um,
it is.
it's incredibly dense, incredibly hard to read. I think I blocked out about 3 months worth of time. I felt like I knew the material, extremely well. I was a little disappointed when I took the exam. There was some of the domains that I was hoping we would get into that, for whatever reason, my exam didn't have a lot of those questions on. One in particular was cryptography. I was hoping to have a deeper dive in cryptography. The exam that I ended up taking had there seemed to be a lot more focus on policy procedure. There was a lot of disaster recovery questions, business continuity, that type of thing, which is fine. I mean, there's no issues with that. I'm not saying that's good or bad, um, but I think the proudest moment is yet to come. When I finally received the OSCP certification, I'll it'll kind of put behind me this thing that I've been hanging on to for 10 years, that I just spoke about.
I understand. It'll give you the confidence that you need having that certification. I really love the labs associated with that course. It's phenomenal.
The labs are intense. I believe the certification's reputation is 100% deserved. It's um it's extremely hands-on and it's extremely technical, and as untechnical as I thought I might have been. There's a certain base technical knowledge that is expected going into the course. I mean, you at least have to be comfortable with Linux before you can succeed in doing this. So it, it's a very well deserved reputation that the certificate has. When I first became aware of it, I wasn't exactly aware of how respected it was. I've started seeing it show up more and more on job postings, on some of the websites. So I think people are paying attention to it. I think it's a good investment of my time and energy.
I couldn't agree more. What would you say to someone just getting into InfoSec that's looking to get their first certification? Maybe even as just a means of studying, even if they're not interested in taking the exam. What would be the best course for them to go? CISSP, OSCP?
You can't really go wrong with CISSP. I mean, regardless of how you feel about that certificate, it's it shows up on a lot of the jobs. So it's either
Yeah.
it's either a requirement or a good to have, and it's going to make you stand out above and beyond your peers who do not have CISSP in their title. I mean, you can go to Indeed.com right now and just type in CISSP and put in your zip code, and you'll come up with probably 100 or more jobs, with just that one search criteria, and they're widely different. I mean, they're not all the same job description or job functions. It's all over the spectrum, but it is a very common certification.
It's a tough question because it really just depends on what they're wanting to do almost. But a
There's
lot of them don't know where to begin, and need some guidance to take that first step. It kind of sounds as if they could probably go either direction, and if they wanted to be a pen tester, OSCP's probably the gold standard on that.
OSCP and the GPen look like the two gold standards. But even I mean, GPen is quite expensive to sit to for the study material. But let's see. OSCP is fairly affordable, and even if you can't afford that, what I would recommend for somebody who's wanting to go the pen test technical route would be, there's a website called vulnhub.com, and they host a bunch of vulnerable images for various machines that other people have created. They didn't necessarily create all these machines, but they host them, they link to them, and they kind of give a rundown of what the challenges are. And if you've ever heard of a CTF or participated in a CTF, a capture the flag event at some of the conferences,
Yeah.
these machines are very much designed that way. So you can download the machine, you can run them in, say, VirtualBox, which is free if you've got the budget and you can afford it. VMware. There's another virtualization tool that I've been playing around with and I'm very happy with. It's called libvirt, and it's a little more tricky to set up, so I won't really get into it. But VirtualBox is perfect. I mean, you can download it; it's free. Download the vulnerable VMs, download a Kali image, boot up the two machines, and just practice. And really, that's what the OSCP is designed to do. It's designed to give you a virtual environment that you can safely practice. I'll be honest. One of the things that kept me from practicing some of the technical skills that I so dearly wanted was every time you hear somebody say, "Well, you need to practice," they'll always have this caveat: you can only practice on machines you're authorized to hack on.
Right.
So the you know I've seen stories of people doing scans, and they get arrested for just doing a scan on machines that they're not authorized to scan. So you can't just go
Right.
out and start attacking things on the internet. And in fact, if somebody's considering the CISSP, you definitely don't want to go hacking machines on the internet. If you do get into legal trouble, I mean, that'll pretty much prevent you from ever becoming a CISP. The So that was one of the hindrances. So one way around that is to download these free VMs, the VM players, and just practice. Um, and really, you just kind of have to do it. You know what I mean?
I agree. It's fun, and one of the words of wisdom I've heard before is that how do you prepare for a marathon? You don't sit there and read a book
You get
like
out
for
and
3 months. You get out there and you do it. So
right.
you're running constantly. That's how you prepare. And if you want to prepare to be a pen tester, what you're going to have to do is pen test a lot of different virtual machines,
Yep.
like you would get with the OSCP course or some of those links that you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. The more you can practice on your own, and the more comfortable you are coming up against different environments, different machines, different architectures, the more you can understand about how all those pieces fit together, the better off you're going to be. And when the time comes and you're interviewing for a job, a pen test position, you'll actually have some skills, and you're not just saying, "Hey, I'm interested in this," or "I'd like to get into this." You can actually say, "Look, I've done these things. These are the things that I've done." You could list the exercises that you've done on VulnHub, or any of the CTFs you participated in at conferences. Hiring managers that are hiring pen testers look at that and they go, "Okay, well, I mean, they actually do have skills and they care about this. They're interested in it outside of whether they're getting paid for it or not." So,
Yeah. Well, John, I know that you're really into OSCP right now. What else is going on in your world? What's motivating you right now?
huh? uh, well, there's always money. I do have three kids and a wife, and so money is always a motivator, but that's not the primary motivator. Mostly, I would say my family motivates me. They're the ones that keep me going. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I've got boy, girl, and they all look up to me and just think I'm the best thing ever. And someday they're going to realize that they're not entirely correct, but um, it's
John, to them, you're the best and you always will be.
yeah. We'll see when they hit the teenage years. My mom wished 10 of me on me, and like I said, I wasn't the best young person. So uh, if my mom's curse comes true, I've got some head to shake. So
Well, what do you have coming up in the next few months? I know you're real active with OWASP.
the second Tuesday of October, and I wish I knew the date right off the top of my head. I do not. Anyway, the second, if you go to meetup.com dash OWASP CLT, it'll take you to our OWASP page. Michael Coates, who is the chairman of the board for the OWASP organization, is coming to Charlotte to speak at the Charlotte chapter OWASP, as well as there's an event going on at UNC Charlotte called Charlotte or Cybersecurity Symposium. Dr. Bill Chu puts that on. He'll be speaking there as well.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
so that's kind of a big deal. If you follow OWASP and you know who he is, he's kind of a big deal. And to have him come to Charlotte and speak at two events is also kind of a big deal. I'm kind of excited about that. It would be, yeah, it's this upcoming Tuesday the 14th. We start at 6:30 p.m. We usually run till around 9, sometimes later if the conversation is good. Like I said, we've got pizza, drinks, coffee, free Wi-Fi. It's a pretty good time.
Free Wi-Fi, free food, free drinks. That's it.
That's it.
I'm there.
It's the second Tuesday of every month. Right now, we're trying something new where we're doing um, one virtual meeting this month, and then meet space or a face-to-face meeting the next month. So, and the reason we're trying to do that is it's incredibly difficult to find people to speak and share their knowledge with the community. You would think that it wouldn't be so hard. There's quite a few people who enjoy hearing their own voice. I'm one of those people, obviously, and but to nail these people down, and there's a lot of really talented individuals that have a lot of knowledge, um, but I'm afraid that a lot of people in the tech industry, not just security, but the tech industry, are just not comfortable speaking in front of groups, and it's a shame. And I get that because I've been there, but it's not an easy thing, and especially if you got people heckling you or something like that. But
Maybe we could change that, John, because I think that being willing to share and make yourself vulnerable, your own walking vulnerability, but getting in front of your peers, even if you don't know every last thing about security, trying to share what you've learned with other people in a local OWASP chapter. I think there's a whole lot of value to doing that, don't you?
I think there's incredible value in it. I mean, personally, so from the non-altruistic perspective, the person speaking, they get exposure to other people they maybe wouldn't get exposure to, and I guarantee you that everyone listening knows something that other people don't know. I mean, there's like one thing that they've dug into. They dug into it really deep. They understand it inside and out. And for me, for many years, it was the SSH config file. I think I think that an SSH config file is probably one of the most ignored, but one of the most valuable tools in any tech tool belt, not just information security. But there's a lot of cool stuff you can do inside your config file. And the only reason I'm saying that is there's a lot of people who I think would know that, but don't. When I start talking to them, they haven't actually spent the time messing around in the config file. One of the more interesting, I don't know, this is not more interesting, but it's something common that I do is I generate a new key pair for each server I'm connecting to, and that allows me to retain a little bit of control if I were to lose one of the keys somehow. It doesn't compromise all of the servers that I've put that public key on. So and by being able to tweak the config file, you can say, well, with this server, I want to use this key, and with this server, I want to use this key, and it makes it kind of once you've got it set up, it makes it brain dead simple to continue to use. Another interesting thing you can do with it is you can route connections pretty much anywhere you want to. Like for instance, you could SSH into a Tor hidden service, but have it all set up in your SSH config file so that you would basically just type in two words, SSH space, and then whatever name you've given to that endpoint, and it just connects. Something for people to dig around into. I'm sorry I got off on that tangent.
No, and that's a great example of some incredible tips that everyone's got walking around inside of their head that they could share with others if they were willing to kind of
Just
attend a chapter and share and just join in the dialogue.
Absolutely. And that's really all we're looking for is the people to join in the dialogue. I like to think that we have pretty decent dialogue at the OWASP meetings. There's a fairly good mix of some new people that are new to information security, new to web application security, new to OWASP in general. And then there's some seasoned professionals that have been doing it 10, 15 years. They do it professionally. They're paid to do this kind of thing. And both sides can learn from either or. One of the things I think a lot of people that have been doing it for a long time kind of fall into is I can't learn anything new, or this concept of I know everything. And I don't mean to say that they're conceited or egotistical. It's just when you look at the news headlines, when you're reading through your RSS feeds every day, you kind of see the same things over and over. There's just not a whole lot of new coming up on the radar, but whenever you get the older guys with the younger guys in the room together, some new things actually are discovered. There was a very seasoned guy, and he's heavy into content security policy, and he preaches it kind of every chance he gets. And I think that's great. It's something that a lot of companies don't really make use of. Well, there was a younger guy who became interested in some of his talks on content security policy, started asking questions. They formed a little sidebar and worked on it for the remainder of one of the OWASP meetings. I think it rolled into the evening, and they were doing some follow up conversations over about 3-4 days via Skype or Google or
I
something.
love it.
But what he found out at the very end is the new guy showed the older guy a way to bypass some of the restrictions that content security policy was putting in place. So I thought that was pretty cool. That and the older guy appreciated it because he's like, wow, I didn't really consider that. And yeah, you can totally bypass this control with this very simple method. And I'm sure haven't followed up with him, but I'm sure he pushed it up the hill and is looking to get some patches in. So it's a win-win for everybody, I think.
Absolutely. Well, John, Mojo, how can people connect with you?
I'm on Twitter at th3mojo, the Mojo. That's probably the best way to get in contact with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I got a Facebook account, but I don't ever log in there. Email is also good. You can email me at rjmolesa@consoltec.net. Probably the two best ways to get me.
Okay. Do you have any websites out there that are great resources or some online tools, maybe some near or free tools that you think people should know about?
Again, I'll plug vulnhub.com. I think they're doing a fantastic job of organizing all of the vulnerable machines into a common repository. I think that's a great place to start. There was one, and I shouldn't even mention it because I can't think of the name of it. If I find it later, I'll send you an email for it. But it was, man, they had a ton of stuff, a lot of tools, a lot of really old tools that aren't available anymore. You can still download them from this. Forget it.
Absolutely. When you find it, which will be right after the call,
Yeah.
send it to me and I'll make sure we get it up into the show notes for everyone.
Okay. It's a really old tool. They also had they got a lot of stuff from way back in the freaking days. A lot of tools for freaking. There's a lot of documents. When this information was harder to come by, is when a lot of this collection was put together. So it's kind of fun from a nostalgic point of view to browse through some of it. But even yet, there's still stuff that's relevant to today. Issues that they had back then, we're still dealing with today. We've still not solved some of them.
Computers have changed, but humans have not.
Humans have not changed at all.
All right. Well, what about a book recommendation? Would you recommend the Sean Harris book for someone starting out, or is there something that's
Would recommend that book for someone who's starting out.
okay?
It's dense. I mean, I don't mean to discourage anybody. It's just, man. I mean, if you like a good nap, that's a good book to pick up and start reading. Within 30-40 minutes, you'll probably be dozing off.
I have to say something here. I tried the Sean Harris book. I thought it was a good reference library, but as far as, I don't know, interesting and studying for the exam, I think the book by Eric Conrad and a couple of others from the SANS group is a little bit better, a little more practical, and filled with some valuable questions that get you thinking about the exam.
I say go with that one then, because yeah, I agree. Sean Harris is a good reference book. There is probably not an area that she didn't cover in great detail.
I agree.
That's part of the problem when you're reading it, though, is you find your mind drifting off into other places. but
True.
Anyway, it's a very informative, very authoritative book. She's been doing this a long time. She's definitely, she's got the creds to do it. So I'm not
She
trying to.
certainly does. She's an incredible lady. The book is awesome. I owe a great deal to her personally, and it's not for what you think. She is the reason why I bought an iPad, and the iPad changed my life. But I got tired of going to bed at night, compressing my chest with that 20-pound CISSP book of hers. And so I bought the iPad, and I took the PDFs that come with the book and just transferred it over to it, and it was a big life changer.
There you go. So I had bought mine on the Kindle version, and I was trying to read it that way. I guess maybe a book recommendation. I really like Dave Kennedy as a person. I've met him a few times. He's interesting and friendly. His book Metasploit I can't remember the full title. It's like Metasploit for Penetration Testing or something like that. It's an excellent book. It'll get you. I mean, if all you really want to do is learn Metasploit, you can learn pretty much everything you need to know to get you off the ground and running by reading that book. That's a great book. So the Great Hat Hacking books, those are good. One I've recently picked up but haven't gotten to dive into yet is Practical Malware Analysis. See, that's the thing. I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about people getting started and where they can kind of focus their careers. Man, the information security field as a whole is still fairly new. Even though it's 15, 20 years old, it's still fairly new. It's something that companies are finally starting to pay attention to. They're finally starting to put budgets on it and hire people. And the issue right now is there seems to be more demand than supply.
So true, John. We are so lucky to be in this field right now. It's a great time to be in information security. Everyone, you can find these resources that John's mentioned, all the guidance from him online. Just go to hackersonfire.com and search for John Melissa. Thank you, John, for an amazing interview. Hey everybody, it's Glenn. I'm excited to share a free gift with you. Hacker 500 is a resource guide of 500 of the world's best information security tools. So check it out. It's a free download on hackersonfire.com. We'll see you there.
Thank you so much for checking out Hackers on Fire with your host, Glenn Roberts. We'll see you next time.